It's coming. You've been warned. Nah, it's all a hoax. Trust me, I'm a scientist. No, no, no. Trust me, I'm a politician. Either way, don't look up. Two low-level astronomers must go on a giant media tour to warn mankind of an approaching comet that will destroy the planet Earth. This Netflix original movie stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Rob Morgan, Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, Cate Blanchett, Mark Rylance, Tyler Perry, Melanie Lynsky, Himesh Patel, Timothee Chalamet, Ron Perlman, heck, even Ariana Grande. The cast is certainly stacked in this scathing satire of the United States and its handling of a global crisis. This time, a large comet is hurtling towards Earth and will cause an extinction-level event, ending life as we know it. DiCaprio and Lawrence are astronomers who discover the comet and its impending doom. They do what they can to warn the powers that be, only to be treated as a joke because it doesn't fit their own political agenda. Adam McKay directs us, and he's already done a few satirical looks at America with The Big Short and Vice. Now here, he takes aim at the presidential administration and the American people's refusal to listen to subject matter experts in favor of taking the ignorance of talking heads as gospel. And I gotta tell you, I laughed out loud so many times throughout this, mostly because of how the film points out the absurdist beliefs that many hold. The retorts, actions, dogmas, they're all ripe for ridiculousness, and McKay doesn't really ever hold back. The three main drivers of the story are DiCaprio, Lawrence, and Morgan, and they each are wonderful in their own rights, but also as a trio. They are continually bombarded with ignorance held as truth, and just because the message isn't one that matches the narrative of those in power. The dialogue is quick, and I love the journeys each of the three actors take. Now, DiCaprio starts off stammering and mumbling, tripping over his own thoughts and words, to then become a confident driver of truth, only then to revert to some of his old ways. Lawrence is fierce and outspoken. She's brash, but really says what most rational people would want or need to say in the face of utter stupidity. Morgan is quieter, but intelligent and driven, and he attacks issues from a different angle, and I love what we see from him in just small scenes throughout the story. Meryl Streep and Jonah Hill are disgustingly accurate and then hilarious. I hated them, but I loved them all at the same time. In that I mean that I hated the characters, but I loved their performances. Now, as funny and as pointed as this whole movie was, it was way too long. It clocks it at just under 2.5 hours, and I really felt the time. The jokes and satire began to wane a bit, making the experience one I began to endure rather than cheer on. I still was having fun with what I was watching because it's all just so absurd, but there was a point probably close to that hour and 45-minute mark that it felt like the story should be starting to wrap up, but it kept going. There are also some very odd editing choices within the entire movie. Sometimes imagery of animals and environments would be shown in very quick succession, but they felt ill-placed. They didn't feel as though that they were reinforcing the message, but instead were kind of forced into this portion of the story for some emotional lift, but that didn't occur. At other points, there are rapid cuts of sequences where imagery may be on the screen for like half a second or even less, creating this chaotic flashing of sequences. And these were distracting because they were out of sync with the score or the soundtrack, and they didn't feel like they were building to something, but instead felt more manipulative in their placement. Now, towards the end of the movie, this was repeated, and there it began to have a little more meaning and impact because it fit well with what we were seeing in the narrative. I still would have preferred it to have a better cadence in the delivery, hitting on beats or feeling more in sync with the pace, but still, this wasn't distracting as it was in those other sequences. Now, I think this is going to be a pretty polarizing movie, just like the United States is pretty polarized when it comes to COVID, masks, politics, vaccines, science, or, what have you. Now, there are some times where special effects are utilized in this, and I thought they looked great. We see some images of space, and they were beautiful and then convincing. Now, this isn't a space movie, so we don't spend an exorbitant amount of time there, but what we do get to see was well crafted, and it didn't come across as fake or computer looking. For me, one of the best sequences in the entire movie is towards the end as we watch a dinner and then conversation occur. What's shared is powerful, honest, even raw, but it's amazing to view. Even though I felt the movie went on too long, this was a key scene that I'm glad was included. There's also a mid-credit scene that added just another level of ridiculousness and irony to everything and was really put there as an exclamation point to the entire satire. So overall, Don't Look Up is a hilarious look at what has been occurring in the United States and probably around the world over just the last few years. The acting is wonderful, led by DiCaprio, Lawrence, and Morgan, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors. While the satire is on point and often cringily funny, the entire execution becomes a bit self indulgent with the length required to tell this tale. The pace works for most of the film, but the story becomes noticeably long, creating a sense of slowness as the film reaches the third act. And while I think this will polarize audiences, the message is poignant, timely, and sharp. The biting irony had me laughing out loud sometimes because of how true the messages actually were. There's brief sex and nudity, a ton of profanity, and some violence. I give Don't Look Up 4 out of 5 couches. What's a good satirical film that you enjoy? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.